Good morning, everybody. Mr. B back today. Wanted to do a video on area of circles. I know some of you are still working on your circumference, but we're going to be moving on to area next. It is the day after spring break. I am here in the class. Just to give you an idea, there is nobody here, and it's very sad without everyone around. But I still am going to teach either way. There's my messy area where my Subway lunch is still sitting. All right, so let's just very quickly review from circumference. So we have a circle. We have two units of measurement for the circle. We have diameter, the distance across, and we have radius, halfway between the diameter. And we know that the diameter is twice the radius, and the radius is half the diameter. And we should know that the formula for calculating circumference of a circle is circumference equals pi times diameter, and pi equaling 3.14. It is a much larger number, but for simplicity's sake, we shorten it to 3.14. Now, we also know that sometimes if I don't have the diameter, I need to use the radius and double it. So let's just do an example. We have a circle that has a diameter of 6 meters, which means my formula would be circumference equals pi times 6, and circumference equals, now for these you should be able to do these calculations on paper, they are not hard. 6 times 4 is 24, we have 8, and we have 18.84. And this would be meters. Now, let's say I didn't have the diameter, but I had the radius, and let's say the radius was 4 meters, okay? The only difference here is I need to double the radius before I do my calculations, because I'm not doing pi times radius, I'm doing pi times diameter. So pi would be 3.14. Since our radius is 4, our diameter would be double, which would be 8. Now I can go ahead and do 3.14 times 8. Don't use calculators for these. They're very easy. So when you're doing your worksheets, please show me your multiplication. 8 times 4 is 32. 8 plus 3 is 11. And 8, 16, 24, and 25. And our decimal is 2 places. It's right there in the middle, 25.12 meters. This is what your work should look like. A lot of you are just writing in the answers. I have no idea how you did that. There are certain questions I will allow calculators on, but please read the instructions on Google Classroom as I will be more specific. All right, let's go into area. When we have a circle, and let's say we have a radius of 3 meters. So here's our circle. Now, we're going to be doing something a bit different here. We're not looking for the perimeter. We're not looking for the circumference, the distance around. We're looking for the space in between. Now, if you think back to the other shapes that we worked with, when we did parallelograms, we did base times height, area equals. When we did triangles, we did area equals base times height divided by 2. And when we did trapezoids, we did area equals base 1 plus base 2 times the height divided by 2. And you guys know this because they're still seeing these questions in our daily math. So we do know that it's going to be an area calculation. We should also know that our answers are always measured in meters squared, okay? Because we're dealing with squared meters, squared parts of the object we're trying to find, and it's no different with circles. Now, it's very hard for me to show you a visualization on the whiteboard, so I'm going to be linking another video below from Math Antics. It's a very cheesy video, but he better explains because he has the technology to do that. When I square something, okay, now remember, when we talk about squaring, let's say it's 2 squared, or 3 squared, or 4 squared. Whenever I have a little 2 as my exponent, all that means is I'm going to be multiplying the base number by itself. So that would mean this would be 2 times 2, this would be 3 times 3, and this would be 4 times 4. Okay? When we square something, or multiply it by itself, we literally find the area of a square. Okay? Not perfect, again, because I'm working on a whiteboard. We literally find the area of a squared part. Now you might be thinking to yourself, okay, well if I look at that square, Some of this circle obviously is in the square, but some of it isn't in the square. So I'm going to need to do something to this radius in order for me to find the area of the entire circle, excluding that outside area. So there is a formula that we will be using to find area of circles. And it's a formula that works every single time. And you really want to make sure you write this down and remember it. And it's area equals pi times the radius squared. We already know pi, it's 3.14. We know what the radius is, it's half the diameter of the circle. And squaring something just means we're timesing it by itself, which means whatever the radius is, I'm going to times that by the radius, okay? Now, when I do that, I'm actually going to be, when I square something, I get this, and when I multiply by 3.14, I'm multiplying it 1, 2, and 3 times, okay? Now again, it's the video that you will watch at Mathantics will show this a bit better, okay? So it's going to give us the area of, the perfect area of the circle when I multiply it by 3. Sorry, it would be by 3. Now you might say, well, we're leaving out this region here. Yes, but I also have all this extra area here. So it does work out perfectly to give us the area of the inside of the circle. Again, I apologize, it's very hard to show this on a whiteboard. I'll try it one more time. But we have our circle, we have our radius, let's say it's 4. We square it, which means we times it by itself, which in terms of area gives us all of this space here because it's a square, 4, 4, 4, 4. If I do that times it by 3.14, it's going to go 3 times in total. But then everyone goes, well, where's this area then? You only multiplied it by 3. Yes, but we multiplied by 3.14, plus we have all this extra area that didn't get factored in. That will make up the rest of the space here. Again, hard to visualize, but if you watch the Mathantics video, it gives you a better description of that. But either way, our formula is the same. So let's do a couple examples together. So here's a circle. Let's say the radius is 4 meters. Okay, so we start with our formula. Area equals pi times the radius squared. Okay, so let's fill in the blanks just like we do with any formula. We don't know the area yet, but we know pi is 3.14. We can use brackets or we can just write the multiplication symbol. The radius is 4 and we're going to square it. Now here some people will often get confused. They'll multiply 3.14 times 4 and then square it. That's not what we're doing. Make sure you do your squares, your exponent first. If you did order of operations last year, which I believe they do in grade 5 or 6, you need to do exponents before you multiply. So let's go ahead and do 4 squared, which is just 4 times 4. And that gives us 16. So we have 3.14 times the radius squared, which we found is 16. So the order to finish this, we just need to multiply 3.14 by 16. This is not hard multiplication. However, a lot of the questions in the textbook and worksheets are going to have decimal numbers for your exponents and obviously for pi, which means you're going to be doing a lot of multiplying. So for this unit on area only, I am allowing you to use calculators to help you with the multiplication. I'll do it here myself, but 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8, and 6 times 3 is 18. Add our 0. 4 times 1 is 4, 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 3 is 3. And when we add them together, our answer is going to be 50.24, and remember, area is always measured in meters squared. So 50.24 meters squared. So that's what you do. You take your circle, which we already have, you use the formula A equals pi radius squared. We fill it in, pi is 3.14 times the radius, which is 4, and we square the radius. Whenever we square something, it just means multiply it by itself. 4 times 4 gives us 16, and 3.14 times 16 gives us an area of 50.24 meters squared. Okay, let's go on to one more example here. Let's say we have another circle, a smaller one, and we have the radius here of 2.4 centimeters. Okay, so again, start with your formula. Area equals pi times the radius squared. Area equals pi, we already know, sorry, is 3.14. I like to use brackets to show my multiplication, but you could write times. The radius is 2.4, and we have to square that radius. Now remember, when we square something, all we're doing is we're timesing it by itself. Okay? So, I don't have a calculator in front of me, so I'm going to do this manually. So, we're going to square it here. That's right. Which gives us 5.76. All right, you can see how the multiplication is getting harder and harder here because you're dealing with more numbers. So we have now, we squared our radius, which gives us 5.76. Now we just need to times pi by that 5.76. So what we did here is we squared our radius, and now we need to times it by 3 to give us the rest of the space that we need. Again, I don't have a calculator in front of me, so I'm going to be doing it the long way. And I challenge you, if you have the time, go for it. It's just going to take a lot more of your time. 6 times 4 is 24. 6, 7, 8. And 18 is our first row. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9, and 7 times 3 is 21. We go down to our last row, we had 2 zeros. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7, and 5 is 15. We add up all of our numbers now. And we have 4 decimal places here. It's quite a few decimal places. So our decimal place will go right here. And our answer becomes 18.0864 centimeters squared. Boy, there you go. Now, in order to estimate that, you could look and just say, well, get rid of your decimals and say 5 times 3 is 15. So we got 18. We're pretty close because there obviously is some decimal numbers in there. It's not going to be 180 or 1, so we're in and around 18. Great job. And that's how we do that. I guess I'm saying great job to myself, but if you're following along, that would be excellent. Now, the last thing I want to go through today is, what do you do if you don't have the radius? Because you're going to see some of these questions. So let's say we have a circle, but this time we have the diameter of 10 meters. Some of you already know the answer to this, but... So, again, let's go ahead with our formula. Area equals pi radius squared. Area equals, we know pi is 3.14. We don't have the radius. We have the diameter. But we all know that the radius is simply half the diameter. So if we know if the diameter is 10, half that would be 5. And don't forget, we have to square it. 3.14 times, now 5 squared just means 5 times 5, which is 25. And then we just need to go ahead and multiply 3.14 times 25, and you will get your answer. Let's see how fast Mr. B can multiply here. And we end up with 78.50 meters squared. All right. Now that's it. Now, one last thing I want to show you today is I believe there's a couple questions that will ask you to compare the circumference to the area. So let's just say we have 2 circles and they're exactly the same. One has a diameter of 11 meters and one has a same diameter. But this time, we're going to look for the circumference on one side, and on the other side, we're going to find out the area. Now, some of you probably already know the answer to this. What is bigger, the circumference or the area? Well, the first problem is they're measured differently. One is measured area in meters squared. One is measured two-dimensionally in just meters. But I think you'll figure out what the answer is pretty quickly. Circumference equals pi times the diameter. area equals pi times the radius squared. Circumference equals 3.14 times 11. Area equals 3.14. Now remember, we need the radius. We need half of that, 5.5 squared. Circumference equals 3.14 times 11. So circumference equals 34.54 meters. Now, if we go over to the area side, we have one extra step. We need to square our radius first. So we need to do 5.5 times 5.5 in order to get our answer here. And that gives us 30.25. So we need to go ahead and multiply now. Now that we've squared our radius, you can see that this requires a lot of multiplication. Now that we've squared our radius, we simply need to multiply the squared radius of 30.25 by pi at 3.14. We have 20, 8, 9, 10. 1 and 12. That's just the first row. Oh boy. 5, 2, 0, 3. Go to our last row. 15, 6, 7, 0, and 9. Oh man, that is a lot of multiplying. Let's go ahead and write our answer in here. I'm just going to add this together now. Oh man, and there's 4 decimal places. And we're right here, and it's meters squared. So as you can tell, we've now done both of our answers. We have our circumference and we have our area. Clearly the area is bigger at 94.9850 meters squared compared to 34.54 meters. But remember, they're 2 different units of measurement. One is measuring in squared units, the other measuring 2-dimensionally. But this area is greater than obviously the circumference. Now, hopefully you got something out of this, guys. Please watch the other Math Antics videos to help you. I'm going to be sending the worksheets in parts. The first page one day, the second page the other day. There will be a follow-up video to this dealing with area word problems. So please make sure you check out the second video to make sure to figure out how to do the word problems that are going to be coming up. Talk to you soon. See you later.